Another source. 7 days after the death, 7 days, the soul is going back and forth between the house and the grave. That's interesting, because according to Jewish tradition, we sit Shiva for a person who died. Why Shiva? Why we have to sit 7 days? Now we understand why. Because the soul of the person who died will go back from the house where the people sit into the cemetery, back and forth for a period of 7 days, which means he sees exactly who sits Shiva, who really crying, and who is counting when they can share the millions. They hear everything and they see everything. So that's interesting, because this information was given to us 3,300 years ago when God gave us the Torah. We continue. In another place, this is what the Torah says. Rabbi Dosa says, God says in the Torah, Ki lo irani ha'adam v'chai, a human being cannot see me and stays alive. Comes Rabbi Dosa and says, Midrash in Midbar Rabbah, in their life they cannot see me, but they're all going to see me in the time of their death. So God says, when you're alive, you cannot see me. When you go into the next world, whether you want or not, you are forced to see me. Which means every one of us will have an opportunity, once we leave this world, to see who is that great God. There is nothing worse to the spirit than the separation from the body. And a person cannot die until he sees the light of God. Remember, I'm reading it to you from the Zohar, 2,000 years ago. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai wrote it in Meron for 13 years that he was in a cave. And once he's desired to come close to that light, he's going out to accept the light of God. In a time when the time comes for a person to leave this world, the spirit goes out of the body and see the light of God. And from happiness to this light, it goes out of the body. If he's righteous, he gets the merit to stick to that light and be close to it. If he's wicked, the light slowly will disappear from him, and he's going to stay upset and mourn the separation from the body. This is from the Zohar. In a time of death, a person gets permission to see what he could not see in his life. The world to come has no limitation, no borders, no walls, no tent, no end, only huge light, that no light in this world will be even similar to the light of the next world. So this is all what was written in Judaism, like I told you, more than 2,000 years ago. Thank you, more than 2,000 years ago. And we are seeing what happened to the people in our generation, that they describe the same thing that the Torah described at that time. When a time a righteous person is dying, God is telling the righteous people, accept his face. All the righteous people say, you are welcome to this world. When a person is dead, he gets permission to see his relatives, his friends from the material world, and he recognizes them. And they look exactly like they look in this world. If he's righteous, they are very happy for him, and they welcome him and walk with him. The Gemara says in the time of Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai, when he passed away, he told his students around him, prepare a chair for the king of Judah, Chizkiyahu. He came to welcome me to the world to come. So what do we see here? Remember, we heard about those people who died 10 years ago, 20 years ago, Jews, non-Jews. They all describe things that actually the Torah told us many years ago. They say that they saw their relatives. The Torah said that when a person dies, he sees some of his relatives. Who could have known such information 2,000 or 3,000 years ago? Nobody was able to tell such information unless if we receive it from the Creator of life. Comes the Torah and says like this: when a person died, he begins to see everything he did in his life. And he was told, this is what you did on that date. Do you confirm it? And he says, of course, yes. And another place it says, once a person left the world, God comes to him and say, I want you to sign on everything you did in this life. Now when you died for the way you live, and you have to sign and report that everything is correct. And he signs. You should always remember, what above you, there's an eye that watch over you, and an ear that listens to everything you say. And everything you do is registered in the book of God. So this is information that we had in our Torah. One more thing before we go into the scientific world. Everything that is told in front of a dead body, right, in the funeral, he hears until the body is covered with the sand. So that means as long as they take the body into the cemetery, in the car, when they take it, they carry it all the way to the hole, to the pit, and all that period of time when the children is crying and everybody else is crying, he sees and hears everything. Once they take the body inside, still, as long as they didn't cover it, he hears the Kaddish and everything outside. Once they cover the body with the sand, his ability to hear is now much more limited, but he's still here. Until the worms finish to eat all the skin and the flesh, he is still able to hear and see things above his grave. Once the worms eats the body completely, then he cannot see, he cannot communicate with this world completely. Amar lo Rav le Rav Shmuel. Rav say in the yeshiva when he was learning about 1800 years ago to his friend in the yeshiva, his name was Shmuel. And he told him, when I die, I'm counting on you to bring all the students from this yeshiva and this town to my funeral and say a great eulogy for me, because I'm going to be above you and listen to everything you're going to say. This is information in a Gemara. Remember, this is divine information for those who don't understand, because remember, everything we know about life after death came for the last 25 years. 25 years ago, if you say there's life after death, people would look at you as a weirdo. What is this guy dreaming? Today, it's scientifically it's been proven. The Rambam writes, the Torah told us not to communicate with the dead people. How can you communicate with the dead people? By all kinds of tricks. How do you do it? Pay attention. There's a way to communicate with the dead people by starving, fasting, going to sleep in a cemetery on the graves until you get the spirit of impurity. And this is what the Rambam writes. Everything a Jew does to communicate with the dead people, to receive the information from them, it's a terrible sin against God and His Torah. Everything we are going to show you in the next few minutes was done by non-Jews. We are taking advantage on their discoveries to prove that our Torah is divine and not human. But we absolutely are not allowed to communicate with the dead, even though it's very easy today to do it, but we are not allowed. Someone who does all kinds of forms of communication with the dead people, the punishment in the Torah is to die very young. And plus, there's all kinds of tragedies in his life. I once met a guy that used to do it in his home, and he said that every day he used to come home, and the wallpaper on his wall was all scratched with lines. Nobody lived there, he was alone. He said because we used to do those things in the house, there were many, many lines on the wall, things from doing it. And all kinds of terrible things used to happen to him until finally he realized that he's playing with his life. There is one famous seance in Israel that people communicated with the soul of the Prime Minister, the first Prime Minister of Israel, Ben Gurion.